Kenneth, you form the core of Temporary Distortion. Bill, I mean, you're now involved in just about every production.
Yeah, and almost every aspect of production at this point, so, yeah.
I was going to sort of lead into, I guess, you guys are the core of Temporary Distortion at this point. Can you tell me a bit about what the company is and what you see your aesthetic being and who you're trying to talk to, maybe, if you have someone in mind, and kind of what you're trying to make.
Okay, just that, huh?
Just that. You've got 30 seconds.
Well, who we're trying to talk to, I think that, we're still finding our audience, and our audience is maybe just the people that are excited by what we're putting on stage. I don't think that we have any particular audience in mind, at least, I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
And when I started the company, there were certain things that I was interested in exploring, minimalism and stillness and sort of a sculptural type of, theater piece, and that we've added to that like another dimension. And the reason that I think that we started to incorporate video was that it allowed the work of Temporary Distortion to have sort of another dimension to it that I don't know that I would have, like when Bill first came to me talking about the idea of putting video in like my work at the time before he was involved with the company, it was only attractive to me because it seemed to open up this other world, that my own personal aesthetic was too sort of limited to incorporate. That I wanted everyone on stage looking straight out. I didn't want them talking to each other necessarily. I didn't want them touching. I wanted everything very formal, very frontal. And it seemed like the video was going to allow us to create something sensual also within that very kind of cold world that I was living in.
It's funny, I mean, it's interesting that you would go from a form, or a live performance form, that other people today actually that I've been talking to have been saying is a reaction to the coldness of two-dimensionality and of TV, film, whatever. And that's why they think the live is important. And you're actually saying that the live that you're making is cold, is formal, and you're looking to film to kind of...
Well, I think that's about the vocabulary of the audience being that I think that it's changed, like there's a reversal that's happened because we have such a vocabulary with film, and I think our vocabulary with theater is lessening. And then like the balance, over time has gone from theater and film to film, or to film and theater, where there's this change of value in that what we can relate to. And I think that, and I know, in terms of who our audience is, I feel like, our audience, at least, is us, is like Kenneth and I, that we sit and we want to make work that we think is, we love, that we think is good. And so I think that, reacting to, looking at film as being more sensual than theater, I think is our reaction to our own experience, where like we see movement theater, we see physical theater, that maybe we've seen the wrong stuff, but we've seen a lot of it. And I know my reaction has been that I don't relate necessarily to some of the symbolism people are using on stage nowadays, and some of the naturalism that people are trying to achieve. And I feel like to go the opposite way is our solution.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe sensuality when I see it on stage. Like intimacy and sensuality on stage, I never buy. And I've seen productions where they go full out and actually, commit sexual acts right there for real on stage, and still you don't buy it. There's something about being in the room and sitting here as an audience and seeing it there, and there's just like, I don't know, it doesn't read as real, whereas film techniques still trick the mind, at least for me. Like, when I see intimacy in a movie, or if I see it on the screen, the way that the camera gets in there, it's more believable in a way than it is when you have it right in front of you in real life.
Well, but at the same time, though, our work extends outside of the stage, though. Like with this particular piece, we made an art installation that is interactive. Like it's a private experience for an audience member. So it's literally one of our signature boxes. That's a closet. So an audience member goes into a closet and encloses themselves totally alone, and then peeps through a hole that's dug into the wall. And then there's a video that is triggered that is totally responsive to the audience member. So the box only reacts when someone's in there peeping through the hole to experience the sequence. But I think that like what we're interested in terms of interacting is we're interested, I think, in getting people alone. And I feel like what we managed to do with a lot of our performances and with this installation specifically is we get people alone in that state of mind. Like when people watch our shows, it's almost like everyone's in their own, you know, when everyone's focused, we have a good show and a good audience, it's like everyone's separate in their own, you know, they're holding their breath and they're not at all involved with each other, they're into their own world. That's what I had when I first saw Kenneth's work. I had a totally transportive experience. There was no video, there was almost nothing, you know, there was just two performers and microphones. And I was totally transported, and I was lost in the language, and I was lost in the lighting, and like, you know, there'd be light cues that were evolving over, you know, a minute or two, and things were just shifting so slowly, and I found myself totally alone. And I remember waking up from the show, you know, and I hadn't slept, and I woke up from it, and I was like, you know, I felt like, you know, what it was missing was that, you know, a few more elements to get more people into that place. And I feel like it's a meditative experience that we're going for.
Can you tell us about the current piece and what its sort of, what its generative ideas were, and what you know, what triggered it off?
Yeah, the jumping off point for it was to look at Japanese ghost stories and look a little bit at Japanese horror movies and just explore those the way that we explored the road movie for Welcome to Nowhere. I mean, I first got interested in the road movie because I was unfamiliar with it. I hadn't seen Easy Rider, I hadn't seen a lot of other road movies, and just sort of that ignorance got me curious, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's the same way that I approach doing a lot of shows from a thematic point of view, that I find something that I really don't know that much about and use the show as a way to explore it. And it was the same thing with Japanese ghost stories. I hate horror movies, and you know, it's just a style that I'm not used to, so it was fertile ground to kind of explore. And I still hate horror movies, yeah, totally.
Can you tell us about the show? Tell us what it's going to be.
Well, I guess the one-liner that we've been using is that it's about a cop who has an affair with a prostitute who turns out to be a ghost. All of our work is very non-linear, and the story is sort of only suggestive, you know. Mm-hmm. Purposely in the script, there's a lot of holes, there's a lot of places for the audience to fill in with their imagination exactly what's going on and what the relationships are between people. So it's kind of layered and complicated, and I always find it hard to talk about like what the show's about in like a kind of like bop 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 bop. Like, you know, these are the plot points. You know,
don't talk to me about what it's about. What are you looking? What are you looking for an audience to kind of? What are you looking for the impact or effect on an audience to be? I mean, what do they?
I think that isolation
not
is
meaning-wise.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that isolation thing that Bill was talking about earlier is one of the big things that we're looking to provide the audience with.
Pure escapism.
Yeah, and
an
experience.
It's gonna be like, you know, a national lampoon.
Yeah, yeah,
well,
kind of.
Maybe
you know,
very alone.
In a very dark, depressing kind of way.
Yeah. Lots of shtick, lots of physical comedy.
Well, it's a really, I mean, what I see when I'm watching the rehearsals and what I get from it is a really dense live experience, where there is the layers of the live experience, there's the layers of the recorded elements, but the newness of the experience. And I still feel like, you know, even though video is 100, you know, film is 100 years old, video is 20 or 30 years old, but theater and video are together, you know, for a long time now. I still feel like the vocabulary of combining theater and film is a new experience for a lot of people. And even the general theater goer has seen shows with video, but I think they're gonna still get a new experience from the show.